1. I had one attempt to stab me in the back because he wanted control of an internet gaming group of like 2,000 people. Like, holy heck, this 4 to 5 year experience was mental, and I wish to share with you. Back then, I had a ton of online friends, and being the group's leader, I had responsibility to keep the group alive alongside servers, and ensuring the happiness of my clan's player base. We'll refer to the Necklord of Darkness as T. A brief description of T would include an egotistical demeanor. He would also go to any extent to guilt-trip and emotionally manipulate and abuse anyone he found innocent and emotionally weak. Next, if one of his friends would do better than him, or if they were recognized to have achieved something good, he'd ruin it by any means possible in hopes of injecting his own valid self-image and stealing any form of glory, valor, or achievement by his own friend. He'd also outstretch any fiber of potential drama for his own benefit. Anyway, I met T at a con, and right from the start he presented himself as a victim. He seemed to be a sweet and innocent person. He was always with his family and his friends, grandma would buy him everything. But this was merely a veil. He was also dressed in a shitty makeshift Kylo Ren costume, which at the time, the Star Wars movie that introduced Kylo Ren was popular, and there were over 100 Kylo Rens. I felt bad for T considering the fact that he was lonely and with his grandma, and figured he could use a friend. Upon knowing this guy, immediately he opens up to how he was always lonely and never had any friends, which was debunked a while later. I never thought someone could be as severely twisted as T. Anyways, T always attempted to manipulate situations to get me to fight with people in my city's local cosplay community, which later on would be revealed to be a tactic for social isolation, and I should have clicked to his behavior sooner. Once I didn't fall for any of the mental tricks, which, by the way, I always asked for valid evidence of any kind. He often resorted to guilt-tripping and his feelings. Although our friendship was rather jeopardized because of the victimizing, and we eventually fell out for a couple of months before my loneliness kicked in and I reached out online to see how he was doing. Once again, the victimizing, the implementation of how I was abusive towards him, and essentially guilt-tripping me into submission worked at the time. As a last resort, hoping for forgiveness, I invited him to my hybridized clan base on Team Fortress 2, and his behavior went from victimizing to outright maliciousness. He entered the Discord server and was surprised that I had many faithful members who looked out for each other and vibed well. Moreover, he was also very surprised to see that I was the leader of this beautiful clan. Of course, upon seeing this, his jealousy sparked and he wanted to outdo me. But this started as manipulation. He ended up revealing himself to be a fucking man-child, a narcissistic, egotistical neckbeard. Of course, back then, I was an easy sympathizer, and I tried to help people feel better about themselves. But this dude literally would try to flirt with me and try to manipulate as well. I was about 6 or 7 years older than him, like WTF. T envied me silently from the beginning, attempted to discourage any form of opportunity, because it would result in me looking stupid and attention-seeking. Aside from being a woman, which by the way, I was raised in a family that showed me nothing but how to work hard, he spread rumors throughout my social network about how depressed I made him, how I took his spotlight and did it on purpose. For every little thing he wanted praise. He started with grooming people with artwork, then eventually going into hunting innocent people he'd eventually isolate, on the basis of his emotions, in which he successfully isolated and pried 8 people from the clan. It was so depressing to see him leeching onto and gaslighting reputations with no evidence at all. He'd also be toxic during my clan's training sessions and elite drills, which were basically practices for specific classes on TF2, and would overuse the I am depressed or I couldn't control myself sympathy cards often. This happened for a couple of months before the last thing happened. The last straw that led to me exiling him from my clan was when he started to talk hard shit behind my back and was extremely rude to a staff member. But it was eventually exposed by a clan member. My patience and kindness were obviously taken advantage of, and I finally opened my eyes to see what he had done. I wasn't ever going to let myself be taken advantage of again by this putrid son of a bitch. Of course, he pulled the man-child screech and said he never wanted to be in the clan ever again. Good. Because he wasn't allowed to be in it anymore after what he did. Ah. Next, to further assimilate into the macro-level game community I love, and to further emotionally manipulate people, he created a gender-bend rip of my character, and also was extremely unoriginal to the point where he didn't even try to hide not crediting Star Wars characters and lores from other series. To try and stand out in this community, he continued to play the pity party and rise up the social ranks. The slanderous and rather disgusting behavior didn't stop there. This dude wanted his vengeance from having his ego punctured, and went to the extent to gaslight my friendships, which, by the way, hope you're reading this, you really cleaved off the people who were never friends with me to begin with. Ah. He even attempted to destroy the strong bond I had with my clan and my friends outside it as well, and was so malicious to the point where he had me believing I was at fault because he was miserable. He also indulged in these mental gymnastics to the point where he gathered people from around the game community, and in this community there are plenty of mentally ill people that T manipulates for his own benefit, to try and incite drama by approaching me in a friendly manner, trying to embed themselves as friends. Next, they'd prod at me by asking or declaring statements about T's, who he was, what happened. If I do remember correctly, one of them even presented herself to be very vocal and talked mad stuff about me doxing and other behaviors just to fearmonger, even trying to confront me, but she eventually pissed off when asked for evidence. As the delusion spiraled out of control, T also had these people create a rape artwork of my character as a delusional form of revenge. Ended up finding out through a third party who was worried and came to me about it. Eventually, he got hooked on hentai and severely nasty pornography, and attempted to normalize his putrid behavior to minors as well. A common behavioral pattern I noticed was he would victimize himself to gain friends, presenting his one-sided reasoning as to why I mistreated him, and how he became depressed because of me. Also heard from a friend who works every year at the con, how T also tried to get me banned from my local con over how his feelings were hurt. The higher-ups that managed the con took none of their shit without any form of valid evidence. He tried this again for a few more times, but he fucked off. The same cycle continued. If by doing this he assumed by sending malicious people he'd manipulate me, and he would cause me to have low self-esteem, I would be silenced, and would minimize me from enjoying my time online because of his jealous ways, he was dead wrong. I'm the type of woman with a ton of patience, but I'm not the type of person to simply bend the knee, because I don't give people what they want when they want it regardless of age. Over the past 2 years of continuous cyberbullying and slander, my mental health took a toll as a result. My patience became thin and I had enough. The last nail in the coffin was when he sent his group of friends to harass me about how I purposely picked on a poor innocent boy and made him depressed over ruining his cosplay career and acting career as well. I snapped. Contacted this fucker's parents about the behavior with valid evidence, listed said people and suggested how his porn addiction will only lead to the targeting of his siblings, how his behavior in school is against school policy, and if nothing was going to be done, I will get authorities involved. A day after, I was left on red and was given no apology. They ended up blocking me. A few days after that, one of his friends has my Discord account and starts nonsense about how I was cyber-stalking a child. You're 18, my dude. And how he's failing school because of depression caused by me. After a month or so, I heard down the grapevine that he had his computer confiscated for about 3 or 4 days before he gave them a sob story and got his computer back. Take into consideration, I worked as a teacher at his school. He fucked off immediately after the whole thing and was no longer in any of my classes, and he avoided my den like the plague. I did also hear from other students how he kept complaining and attempted to ruin my reputation with my students. But he was immediately slapped in line by the ghetto kids at school, and they did end up beating the shit out of him for reasons unknown and unrelated. They bought into none of his delusions, and I'm extremely grateful for the bitch slap of reality. 4 years of this was enough. In the end, I learned a couple of lessons. What he did only made it easier to find who my real friends are. Remain humble, enjoy yourself, but take absolutely no shit from people like these. Find the right people that care for you and don't consume your energy with their degeneracy. For those who play this mental game on people, don't utilize age, disability, nor mental health to get what you want or to manipulate people. You'll simply be clapped with reality. When you have a gut feeling about a certain person, regardless of age, based on their behavior and treatment of others, stay away from them. Don't care about malicious people's feelings when they're fully aware of what they're doing. Karma has a method of fixing things as well. I've had quarrels with nice guys and neckbeards throughout my time online, and I'm more than willing to share once I'm done with grad school, though it hopefully is over in December. Thanks for listening, and be aware of these people. 2. Okay, so this started with an email in April, with the COVID-19 wrecking society, and our local government shut everything into lockdown, and that included tattoo shops. I, as a paramedic, had a job, and it was so hard as a medic I felt for my patients, who were COVID-19 positive and were literally breathing through straws. On my off time, I'm teaching my now homeschooling stepdaughter how to draw, and it is helping me vent my frustrations. She wanted to learn how to draw anime characters. I loved the idea. So we went balls to the wall on learning. We sketched and drew and traced and colored our hearts out for days, and it really helped her missing her friend that had passed from being infected. She was heartbroken. On my day off, I got an email from Trevor. He's gotten an email from an interested client who wanted to get a tattoo of anime characters surrounding him in an explicit scene. He sent a picture of the girls and the scene from, after some researching, a graphic hentai that had an orgy of girls and a guy in the middle, and it was total NSFW. I got dropped a possible source of the drawings to an artist, and I was able to contact him. He requested $200 for each of these girls he draw, and there's 5, so we were charging the client for use of his images. Covering our asses here, and notify the client that he is fine, surprisingly, with that. We open in July, and we prepare for the client. This day is sketched into my mind. When he opened the door, his odor hit us like a 52-foot truck. It was like on the Gabriel Iglesias scale. Damn, but almost, oh hell no. And the smell was in the oh hell no category. And then he entered. He is like 5'8" tall and that much wide, and he carried a bag with him. More on that in a minute, and his mother came too. Small like me and quite humble. Approached him, and we had to ask him to put on his mask. He said he didn't have to, since they don't fit. We found a solution, and it fit. The smell, I could only describe it as the worst pus boil that has been popped, and it has a heavy rotting odor. Also had the BO. It was like he hasn't showered in months. I stared in horror as he tipped and then took off his fedora and greeted me as, "M'lady." Neckbeard confirmed. His hair, as he ran his finger through the length, stayed in place with the unwashed for months oil that acted like gel. It was gross. I introduced myself and Trevor, and we socially distanced and started to talk about his tattoo idea. Now here is the garbage bag coming out, and 5 crusty-looking body pillows come out, all Lolita-looking girls, and he was introducing them as if they were human and interacted with them. It was awkward as hell, as he asked for chairs for them to sit for the appointment. We refused. His mother went in and out of the door shopping as we continued. We figured out the width and height of the piece, and then the most graphical part, each girl's action with each other and what they were doing to him. Think about a hentai graphic orgy, and the girls that looked like kids. He explained they were goddesses that were hundreds of years old. I had to draw the pictures of the faces and the body shapes of the girls, and I felt so nasty as the middle part of each pillow was well loved. Crusty and yellow, if I can be honest. Trevor can do a lot of different tattoos, but drawing this and tracing and researching this with the client was getting very physically excited with each sexual pose each girl was being sketched. Onto the paper, so he wants a hentai orgy with 5 childlike goddess waifus, and him, 1/20th of him, as center of attention. The appointment running to an end, and we rescheduled for 2 weeks ahead, and he stands. and bows, tips his hat again, and takes his waifu pillows and his mom and leaves. We had to air out the front part of the shop and disinfect industrially to get rid of the smell from it. Second appointment, client. Our neckbeard arrives and is happy with the art he sees. 6 sheets of paper taped together. And Nadine asked if he was paying for it, and his mother came up and on the spot paid $3,200 in a money order that she ran for during Nadine and hers conversation. I'm glad we had this money in time, but this gets bad. We schedule for the tattoo, and I rewrite the preparations for our neckbeard to follow. I mean, like shower, with water, use soap and water, and wash your hair and everything between that and your toes. We have him sign the agreement with his mom being explained that he needs a shower. It's safety and just courteous, the cleaner the better, and the basic experience of getting your first tattoo. And the next week, we schedule him in. I finally have that day off, and I went to help Trevor set up for our 400-pound neckbeard. And we have fans and air fresheners and lavender in cotton balls to shove up our noses, in the event that he has an expected misfollowing of the witnessed and signed agreement for the tattoo. I know basic liner, and I start prepping. And we heard the bell of the door at 12 noon. Neckbeard's odor announced his timely arrival. He is again calling me milady, and Trevor good sir, and some Shakespearean verbiage that I assume, as I was getting the lavender. We asked if he had showered. He said he washed with baby wipes last night. Not what we wanted to hear. He sat down in the tattoo chair, and we heard a sound that had never made before. Glad Trevor had insurance. He takes off his shirt, and settles with his front against the top of the chair in headrest. And I heard an oh god from Nadine, as we saw he was the hairiest guy Trevor had ever seen. We tried disposables, etc. But he wiped out the clippers to mow the back lawn. From shoulder to shoulder, and we go to work. Nadine ran to the back door, and during the 3 hours to line the girls on the other side, 6 hours in all, we got it done. We knew the shading was going to be a brainfuck, so we scheduled for next month. 3 weeks later he came in, and Trevor takes it, and goes for broke on this tattoo like it was Ink Master. He wanted to be done with this hairy neckbeard, anime-loving, lolly-loving, waifu-pillow-jizzing creature. 8 hours in the chair, and this guy fell asleep a few times after he threw up during the third girl was being colored in. I got a picture of the finished tattoo, and I'm glad that my drawing skills helped him not have an illegal porn tattoo. My burner email that I made just for this guy got filled with aftercare messages, and the horror that he had been scratching his tattoo with a skeleton hand on a long stick, and he had scratched off the Sanoderm, and there was blood all over his back, and he's picking the scabs. He's mad, but he came in for extra applications of more Sanoderm. We literally had to babysit that tattoo for it to heal, but we got through it. The chair that made the creaking, cracking sounds is now jammed and not able to lock into positions. He started harassing the tattoo parlor with flowers and holding the door for customers and staff and Trevor, and his excuse was to protect the wonderful angels and incredible staff for making me forever with his art. Anyone that is rude, and they will feel my wrath. I train with the blade. His emails to me for the drawings and consulting him must have come across the neckbeard mind as I was his girlfriend. That's a hell to the no, and I had to block him on my social media and my pages. We didn't list this tattoo in Trevor's studio online portfolio, so we don't get requests like this. This will be the last time I ever commission manga for a tattoo, and help him again if this request comes from anything from bronies to neckbeards. I'll regret when the Comic-Cons come back, because he's probably going to be taking his shirt off to show this graphic NSFW tattoo to the neckbeards that congregate at these events, and boast and brag about his love for his waifus. And I can guarantee his chances of him getting a girl with the art on his back, graphic as it is, will make people run. Pray for us. Think of your artists and respect them for everything they have to tattoo on the body, and art that is requested. 3. I started college back in 2010, and while I don't know if the term neckbeard was a thing at the time, they were certainly around. I played ice hockey growing up, and I was just barely talented enough at it to get a few scholarship offers. Although I was told that when I got to campus I would be rooming with other student athletes, upon receiving my dorm assignment, I found out that due to record enrollment, I would start my college career in a regular dorm. So I move in, and I'm in a quad, myself and 3 other guys. 2 of them seemed normal enough, but one is this tall, very round, pale guy, with small oval glasses, dressed in all black, with those stereotypical goth, poofy black parachute pants with spikes and chains on them that could only have been a Hot Topic purchase. I distinctly remember that he also kept a very sparse beard that lined his chin, and what seemed to be a half attempt at a bad chin strap style. I figured I'm going to be living with the guy, and although I could have made some accurate assumption by his initial appearance, I desperately wanted to make friends quickly, so I attempted a conversation. Gothbeard let me know very quickly that he was very private, and that I should never go through his things. Although that felt like an odd statement, I agreed, because why would I want to go through his things? The quad had bunk beds, and in the first 5 minutes of our discussion, I noticed that Gothbeard had taken a lower bunk and was unpacking what looked like shower rings and blackout curtains. In an effort to keep the conversation light-hearted, I asked him about them. He quickly, without hesitation or shame, let me know that he had curtains so that he could watch porn and anime privately. I always thought that it was weird that he mentioned both of these, and that they were also so he knew that he would be able to bring young women back to the room without having to worry about being spied upon. I kept the conversation cordial after that, but WTF, right? I mentally told myself that I wouldn't have to spend a ton of time in my dorm with him, since I would be starting daily conditioning with the team in the next couple of weeks, and I would get to move to another dorm next semester. Anyways, the next few weeks I didn't have to talk with Gothbeard much. Although he was seemingly always in the room, his curtain was almost always closed. I started to avoid the dorm as much as possible, as I noticed the room smelled like unwashed socks. Instead, I started hanging out with some guys down the hall that would leave the room door open all the time. And they would mostly play sports, video games like Madden, FIFA. By hanging out in their open dorm, I quickly met most of the entire dorm floor, including a couple of gorgeous girls. One of them I'll call Elle. She started coming down to the gamer room pretty frequently just to hang out. One evening, we were playing Madden as usual, and Gothbeard appeared in the open doorway. Despite the fact that I technically lived with him, I hadn't seen him in probably about 4 days. He said, "I'm disappointed. I was hoping there were some real gamers here, but I see you all only play trash games. Jocks are all the same." And then he left. We all looked at each other awkwardly, and after I explained that he was my roommate, we all had a laugh about it. It also became apparent that Elle wasn't into gamers, but she wanted to hang out with the guys. Over the following days, we realized we had a mutual interest in each other, and we started dating. The relationship started fast, but hey, we were freshmen, and it was nice to have a girlfriend while trying to navigate the new world that was college life. Anyways, my hockey schedule picked up, and I had less and less time to hang out with my dorm friends or Elle. Gothbeard would audibly grumble at me when I would get out of bed at 6 a.m. to go practice, despite the fact that there wasn't anything I could do to change it. Some weeks I would travel for games, and Gothbeard would make comments about how he could finally bring a lady or two over, although I never saw him with girls. Ever. One day after getting home from an away game, I met up with Elle to watch a movie. I was tired, so I was looking forward to spending time with her. Her roommate was loudly talking on the phone in their room, so she walked with me to my room. I flicked on the light, and no one seemed to be around. Gothbeard's curtain was closed, so I asked if he was there. No response. This was the first time my room had been empty, so I took the opportunity to have a little makeout session with Elle on my bed. I pulled off Elle's shirt so she was just in a bra, and we continued. Then I heard the distinct, yeah, muttered from the bunk bed across the room. I turned and looked up to see Gothbeard's curtain pulled back halfway, with him shirtless and his arm making movements back and forth. I'm extremely thankful now that the curtain was only pulled halfway back, Then, without missing a beat, he says something else I'll never forget. "What are you looking at me for? Keep going!" I threw the covers over Al, and she put her shirt back on. Then I got out of the bed and said, "What the fuck, man? I asked if you were here." To which he calmly replied, "I know." I avoided my own room as much as I could for the rest of the semester. I don't think I had more than one more conversation with him during that time. The following semester I was able to move to a student-athlete dorm, and Elle came over most days. If not for Gothbeard, I would have stayed, but that guy was something else. It wasn't far from the original dorm hall. She told me that Gothbeard assumed that by moving away that I had dumped her, and that he had started texting her regularly regarding his affections for her. He even referred to me as an obviously abusive meathead, and that she deserves a gentleman like himself that would basically worship her. He later went on to ask her for nudes that went on an angry text tirade after she turned him down, and he threw a fit about it in front of her and a bunch of my friends, citing that he had seen her in her underwear already, so what was the big deal? I wish I was there for that one. The last I remember of him, he was whining in a super obviously directed way on social media about how women don't appreciate or value kind men. No, dude, she had a boyfriend, you're weird as hell, and you're not kind. I have no idea what Gothbeard is up to these days, but I hope he was able to straighten himself out a bit. Bonus story. The guy had a black choker necklace with spikes that he wore sometimes. It also had a single half-loop metal buckle, so it looked like a dog collar. On the side it had the word "grrr" embroidered on it. Only one time ever did I ask about it. While choker necklaces were common with goths, this one seemed to be specifically made for some kind of BDSM fetish or something. Gothbeard told me that his necklace was for special use only, and that he liked to be dominated. Cringe. I'm glad I never saw him with an actual woman, because then I would have had to imagine things that I'm not sure I can unsee. 4. Fred and I decided to join his family at the lake house that his father owns, as our first summer vacation as a married couple. His family wanted to meet me since Fred and I never dated till we got married. We were housemates that randomly got married. I did an AMA post on Reddit if you want to ask questions. I packed our clothes for 2 weeks, and George told Fred that their cousin is coming to the lake house. "Are you sure? He makes everyone uncomfortable. I don't want my wife uncomfortable." George, Fred's older twin brother, by 6 minutes. "OP, sis-in-law, pack everything?" "Yes, I have swimsuits, sunscreen, dress-up clothes, regular clothes, toiletries, towels, PJs, my makeup, and shoes for 2 weeks. Do I need anything else?" "Nope, ready to meet our siblings. I am the oldest and better looking." "She's married to me," says Fred. "If anything, I'm the better looking twin." They play fight as I grab the luggage. "Stop it before you break another vase of mine." "Fred, can you carry some luggage?" "Let me help," says George. We went to the car and Fred drove down to the lake house. I was in the front seat. 45 minutes later we were there. It was a beautiful 5-bedroom home with a guest house. The lake was in the backyard with a deck. The main house had a wraparound porch. I went to the trunk to grab our things. George helped out and saw Lily. She ran up to the car. "Hello, little sis." "It's true. Fred got married and didn't tell us." "Hello, Lily. Yes, this is OP, my wife." "Hello, I'm Lily, the 4th oldest and the only daughter." "It's a pleasure." We went into the house. Fred and I went to the guest house because his mother said since we're married, we have to share a room, which I didn't mind. His mother called everyone for dinner. "You must be my new daughter-in-law. I love your hair." "Darling, calm down. We don't want to scare her," said Nick, her husband. I met the siblings and everyone heard the doorbell. It was Anime Beard, and he looked annoyed. He walked in and dropped his book bag. With the silence, you could hear a pin drop. "Hello, Anime Beard. How was the drive?" says Taylor. "Horrible. I'm starving." He walked into the dining room, looked at me, and smiled. "Who is the pretty girl?" "She's my wife, so back off." "So you're the one everyone has been talking about? He randomly married you?" "Yes, I'm OP, Fred's wife. I'm Anime Beard. He sat down and we began eating. We talked and I got to know my in-laws. Fred and his siblings cleaned the kitchen. I helped with dishes. Afterwards, I was in the backyard with Lily. I was braiding hair. Anime Beard walked out and sat next to me. Hello. Why did you marry Fred? Why not? You're too beautiful for him. Thank you, but I love Fred and he loves me. He randomly married you. He might randomly divorce you. Stop it. He married her. Now back off, said Lily. Fred walked up to me and asked Lily to braid his hair. We started a braid train. Anime Beard walked off. It's nice to have a sister. I smile. Anime Beard kept looking at me and Fred. Why is he so creepy? I don't know, said Fred. You should stop looking at my wife's chest. I covered up in embarrassment. Anime Beard ran inside. Pervert? I expect this out of you, Fred. She's your wife. Love, don't cover up. You look fine. Want my shirt? I'm fine. Is he always like this? Yes, if he creeps you out, said Lily, Mom would send him home. Later on, we have a huge bonfire to celebrate the first day of summer. Fred and I were sitting on the blanket looking at the stars. George took a photo of us, and he sent it to everyone. Anime Beard made s'mores and loudly ate it. The rest of the siblings were dancing to music. This music sucks. Play country music or anime openings. Let the children have fun. Roger pulled me to dance with him. I let him since he's 5. Watch out, Fred, said George. Roger is taking your wife. Shut up, George. Have some fun instead of looking at Fred's wife. She shouldn't dress like that. Dress like what? Like a slut she is. That's where it gets bad. Fred starts beating him. Fred, stop it! I tried breaking up the fight. George dragged me away so I didn't get hurt. Fred, Anime Beard, stop it, yelled Taylor. George broke up the fight. Fred tries to get out of his hold. Don't call my wife a slut. Don't look at her chest. She's my wife. Fred, calm down, said George. No, he does this every time there's another girl here. He creeps them out. Beating him won't help. Come on, Fred, let's go to bed. Okay. He looks at Anime Beard. If I see you look, stare, glance, talk, or even breathe in her direction, you would wish you'd never come here or were ever born. I dragged him away. First night went downhill, but wait, there's more. After the first night, Fred and I decided to go out to get breakfast for everyone. We ordered online, so we didn't have to wait forever and then pick it up. Fred grabs my car keys and picked up the food. I took a shower as he went to pick it up. I went to the main house and saw Anime Beard. He had a black eye and a few bruises from Fred beating him. He ran off. Taylor walked into the kitchen. Want coffee? Yes, please. I made coffee and gave her a cup. Fred called me and asked me to help with the bags. I helped him. We ordered a bunch of food. As a sorry for a bad night, he said. How is Anime Beard? Black eye and bruises. I'm sorry, Mom, but he called OP a slut and creeped her out. I set up the food. I called everyone down for breakfast. Next thing you know, every single sibling ran downstairs. Food! Sam, shut up! Too early for this. The siblings grab a plate. Anime Beard looks down and grabs the rest of the food. Fred and I drink coffee outside. 5. It was a pretty day of January. I was cold, and I saw the only other metalhead in school who came to me. He was in his battle jacket. For all you folks who aren't used to the metal slang, this is the name you give to your jacket when it's full of patches and pins. Usually what you go to in a concert. So this metalhead Tim came to me with the brightest smile, and although he smelled terribly, and so did his jacket, I was cold enough to accept it. I was out of a relationship with a 4 years older guy. Hey, what's your name? I've been seeing you around and wondered how you were going. He started, smiling at me while I was just sitting there, an earphone on and listening to Slipknot songs. Oh, I'm Lauren. Nice to meet you. You're Tim, I think? Yeah, that's me. I know you're a bassist. I've seen you walking around with your bass. I want to. That's great, I muttered back. At the time, I was very shy and just wanted to end this conversation. Of course it couldn't end like that.
Well, maybe we should go grab lunch one of these days. What are you listening to?
He was switching from one subject to another rather quickly, but I didn't mind. I had someone take me out of the social misery I've been drowning in, so it was kinda nice. Slipknot.
Oh, you're listening to Vermilion Part 2?
He asked out of the blue, and I frowned. I remember that this caught me off guard, as I didn't like it much by the time. For the ones who don't know Slipknot, it's in the album Subliminal Verse, and it's like one of the rare ballad-like songs they released. No Disaster Piece, which was a much, much harder song.
Ah, I didn't expect a girl to be listening to such brutal songs.
I laughed and looked at him before starting to explain to him that I deeply enjoyed extreme metal and black metal, which he didn't seem to get. But past this red flag, he seemed really great. So I went to talk with him, and I soon realized how creepily close he was to me. He kept trying to talk to me, and although he was very slender, unlike many neckbeards, he didn't have a fedora either, he kept calling me pet names as well as the French equivalent of milady. I'm Swiss. So we went on talking, and with the lack of choice settling in for me, I accepted to go out with him. We went official, but no one really cared as everyone seemed to already know about it. For a little note, even though I listened to a lot of metal, I was much more on the punk rock side, and had a mohawk by that time. The joke was that we were like Motorhead, his favorite band who mixes a bit of the two music genres. So, moving past a month, my family surprised me with 4 tickets for Metallica. They knew about Tim and were fine with him as they'd met him, and aside from his horrible body odor, he acted nicely toward my parents. I didn't know how fucking disgusting this boy was. We went, and of course, as the small, absolutely degenerated metalhead I was, I managed to slip to the front and headbang my muscles off. I couldn't turn my head for 2 days. I am a very intense participant of concerts. Tim didn't do much, and he was jealous when I managed to get one of James Hetfield's picks. I remember that he was mad at me for a week or so at that time. My Asperger started kicking in more, one of the signs being that I couldn't bear being touched. So that didn't please Tim at all. He was mad at me for refusing hugs and kisses, even though I had told him about my condition and its effects many times. I consider my autism as a gift, though, because it allows me to do so much. So that's when he started acting in a way that made me want to dump him. He started to act so entitled and forced his affection on me, which I didn't like at all. So far, the first time we went out, it wasn't so bad. But he kept talking about how females in rock and roll were just women who weren't gifted with even half the talent of a David Bowie, and the more it went, the more I wanted to punch him. The moment I dumped him was when he insulted my friend Marie, today deceased, who was playing in a French-Canadian band called Les Dieux Ioniques, literally the Ionic Sums. And he kept saying that she was a bitch for showing her body. She wore skirts and tight shirts, even though she was a fatty. I instantly broke up with him and told him to never approach me again. However, Tim wasn't over, of course not. That little son of a bitch came back to me a year or so later. He had changed, shorter hair, he didn't smell as bad anymore, and he seemed to have a better vision of women in and out of music. We started talking again, and he apologized, even though he stayed very touchy. I was fine with it though, since we'd once been that close, it didn't seem that odd to me. He seemed to really have evolved into something better, but really he wasn't. We continued talking, and now he developed some douchebag attitude towards non-white people in music. However, while we both hated K-pop and didn't like a lot of Asiatic metal in general, I hated and still hate every racist behavior, as it's nothing but shitty and stupid. However, I've beat him on many levels with a far wider knowledge of music. It's the reason I'm still alive, and he often just dropped the case. I was happy for a while, but that's until he started calling me his sexy demon, and talked about my chest a lot. You guessed it, dear reader. Puberty had kicked in while I was away, great. I didn't mind it as my ex was a little talkative about this subject, but never tried anything, so I guessed it would be the same with Tim. How wrong was I? One day during recess, he took my hand and we walked around the school. No one ever goes behind it, and we often went to be able to listen to music and watch videos without having our phones taken. In class, we had to present an object from our childhood, and I had it with me as it was for the French lesson right after. Mine was a 30-centimeter tall marble statuette of Anubis, Egyptian god of the dead, not god of death, and was walking around with that figure that followed me all throughout my younger years. I will never thank it enough for how it helped me through. So we walked down and Tim went for a kiss. A little reluctant, I still gave it to him, and held onto my statue, but I didn't expect what followed. See, I didn't dress like a girl, so dresses and skirts weren't my thing, but on that particular day, I was wearing a red skirt uniform, and it was going down to my knees. See, it was my first concert that night, and I was overthinking everything, so my mother sent me to school in the clothes I'd be wearing for tonight, so I'd get used to wearing them. It was a punk rock concert, so of course, once again, I was nailing the look with everything you could think of. The thing is, I was going to be the artist. Well, that was arousing for Tim, so he kinda slammed me against the wall, enough to make me panic, and then started trying to get his hands on my breasts and under my skirt. I panicked, told him that I didn't want that, as I already said before, that I thought I was asexual, not aromantic though, which led me to be with him without any intent on sexual intercourse. I was also too young. He didn't stop, of course, and I had to slam my marble statuette right in his nuts for him to let go of me. I let it go without telling anyone. That is, until he decided to try to take legal action against me, for absolutely crushing his excuse of a penis with the godly figure of the now god who was keeping the soul of the millions of potential kids he'll probably never have. The police were being very understanding. I was called and they listened to my version after confirmation of a witness in the person of a teacher who came to check on what was happening because I was very loudly telling him no and fuck off, even screaming. He dropped the charge, and so did we, and I thought it was over. That is, until he tried to do something to a student who was on a student exchange in the French part of Switzerland. She was from the German part, and found herself to be a metalhead too. I tried to warn her, but really she didn't listen, and when he tried something, she managed to escape him and came to me to apologize for not believing me. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Neckbeards in the Wild, number 57. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Let's see. What date does this go up on? Well, I know it's a Sunday. It will be Sunday the 29th. Christmas is almost upon us. I know those are bad words, but we must prepare for Christmas. Rather foolishly, in my opinion, they have relaxed the COVID restrictions in Scotland. I don't know if I mentioned that already. I kind of forget what I say in these outros, to be honest with you. I just kind of yammer on. But they've relaxed the restrictions in Scotland, which I think was a bad idea. And the entire reason for it is pure optics. They figure people are going to do what they want, so they've relaxed the restrictions so that it'll look good for them come election time, whenever the next one is. And that's the entire stupid, selfish reason for it. Nothing should have changed, because nothing has changed, and COVID ain't taking time off over Christmas. Certainly not taking time off at New Year. Nope, we're going to have to wait for a vaccine. Okay, and with those little grumbles, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourself.